hollering at everybody. I said, there once was a woman from Manassas who got tired of all the hassles, claiming she'd been raped by her spouse in her very own house, went to the kitchen to get a knife, fully prepared to take her husband's life. But realizing that such a crime was much too heinous, decided instead to cut off his painless. I use the word painless because I thought they'd rule me out of order. They were so mesmerized they wrote in the congressional record, penis. And I never changed it. That's the way. So I went on, I said, now Mr. Speaker, I don't know if this man plays the piano, but from here on out, he'll sing like a soprano. I said, but Mr. Speaker, if he really did rape his wife, maybe, just maybe, he deserved that knife. I then said I yield back any unfound body parts still outstanding and missing. I walked out. The place went crazy. Listen, it hit all the shows, and people were sending me faxes of this thing from Germany. We heard about your speech. It was like a Gettysburg Address. Listen, I was in prison 5 years, and the newspaper down there in Capitol Hill wrote the speech. They still have people interested in this speech. So you see, I tackle significant issues. And when women start taking matters into their own hands, it's time for the government to act. Now, having said that, I'm going to open it up. Anything goes. If you try and embarrass me, I will embarrass you so bad. Go ahead.
Thank you. Very enjoyable. And I have a question that comes back to me. I've known Mickey now for what, 5 or 6 years, something like that. I've been coming up here occasionally. And when you talk to people, or when I talk to people, they say, well, yeah, all that might be true, about the Federal Reserve, about credit cards, about this, that, and the other. But what can you do about it? And if the media is controlled, I mean, we spoke a little bit earlier, and you told me about Hannity, how he shut you down, and how they shut you down off the Van Susteren show. If they won't talk about it, how can us who are learning about it and understand it get our feelings out, or our knowledge out? Because it's really a knowledge issue. If people listen and understand, they wouldn't stand a chance. But the problem is they never get to hear it from any source that they deem credible, which is the mainstream press. And even your people like Limbaugh, who I listen to pretty much every day, they won't even come anywhere near this stuff.
Here's the problem. The major mainstream media in America is controlled.
Yes.
It's controlled by the same powerful influences that control our government. Now, they say, here goes Traficant, he's an absolute anti-Semite. Look, there was an individual that worked in the Bush administration, a man by the name of Mark Grossman, Grossman. You can sue me. It was very close with supporting efforts for Turkey, they say, and Israel. And there was a quote that was attributed to him, that they needed something to be printed in the New York Times. The New York Times, the absolute stalwart, the giant American press, free press. Grossman's comment was, don't worry about it. I'll write the story, and they'll print it word for word with one of their writers on a byline. I'll write the article, and it'll be printed word for word with one of their writers doing the byline. Here's the problem we have. We mentioned some names, and quite frankly, I like a lot of these people. You'll never hear nothing good about me now. You've got conservatives, you got liberals, right? And they don't agree on anything, do they? But you ever hear them mention Israel?
No. No.
Now listen why I'm going to tell you this. If they do, they'll lose their job. Well, let me say it again. If they do, they'll lose their job. Now look. No entity should have this much power in our government. Again, I say I'm not a historian, but what were some of the wise words of our first president, George Washington? He said, beware foreign entanglements. Beware sympathy towards a foreign entity. Because conditions change. And back then he was warning the American people that still had ties and roots in England. But look what we have now. Just look what we have now. No one helped Bill Clinton get elected more than me. When he visited the Youngstown area, I had over 20,000 people in a parking lot of a mall. And they were 45 minutes late, and I kept the crowd. I was that popular back then. And he came with his wife, Hillary. Al Gore was there with his wife, Tipper. And Bill Bradley was there. And Bradley said to me, Traficant, he said, only you can hold a crowd like this. He said, I've never seen a crowd like this. They used that crowd through his whole campaign, his first election and his second. That's how many people were there. When he got elected, I got a cassette in the mail. For my eyes only. It wasn't postmarked. It was just somebody slid under the door. And opened it up, it was a little cassette. Nothing on it. When I had time one night sitting around waiting on a vote, put it in the cassette recorder, and it was a radio talk show in New York. And it was a Jewish host, and his guest was a board member of the powerful American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee, the strongest lobbying group in the world. Hear me. I'll never forget, they started out and said, boy, I guess you guys are really tickled. Yeah, we've been with Bill for so long, Bill and Hillary, close friends. And I remember the other thing he said, well, I was surprised about Al Gore on a ticket. You know, I thought you guys get somebody from the West or the East. He said, no, we wanted to carry that Bible Belt. We felt we'd do good in the West and the East, and we wanted to do good down there in the South in that Bible Belt. And the conversation went on, and the guy said, I guess you're very concerned about that Secretary of State position. Concerns for Israel. Never forget, as long as I live, he says, well, he said it would be nice. But we have so many people in the State Department. It would be nice, but it's not really needed. What we want is we want that first Supreme Court position. Clinton's nominee was confirmed was Ginsburg. I have nothing against her. She's probably a fine justice. I don't have much respect for too many judges, being honest. Second position came open, and Bill Clinton nominated a second Jewish nominee who was disqualified because he had an illegal worker domestically and wasn't even taking out taxes and Social Security and withholding, so was sort of disqualified, never put in prison. And then the scuttlebutt started coming around. You got 3% of the population, you're going to appoint 2 out of the 9. They backed off. In the last 2 years, the last 5 years, you have several incidents of American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee spying on the United States.